Welcome to Learn This Game, where you can learn about board games and how they are played. Today, we'll be looking at American Tank Ace. In this video, there'll be a general description and overview of the game. We'll inventory the components, and we'll go through gameplay, including setup, a complete playthrough of a single mission, and victory conditions. In the description, there'll be some helpful links. There is also a timestamp index so you can navigate directly to any part of the presentation. If you want to skip this introduction and go straight to the setup and gameplay, you can go to the timestamp index now in the description. And if you find this video helpful, please like, subscribe, and share. You can also leave a comment to share your experience with this game, or let us know what game you'd like to see reviewed. American Tank Ace was published by Compass Games in 2022 and designed by Gregory M. Smith. In this tactical combat game, you will command an American tank and its crew to complete missions during World War II in Europe. An app is not required, and there are no standalone apps. This game is recommended for ages 14 and up. The difficulty level is moderate, and each mission averages 10 to 15 minutes to play. If you play multiple missions to complete a single career, it may take 4 to 5 hours to play. The game is designed primarily for solitaire play. However, there are multiple player rules for both cooperative and competitive play. And if you enjoy this game, you may also enjoy these other games by this designer. Now that you've seen a brief introduction to the game, let's get into the game itself. American Tank Ace is a solitaire combat game that uses dice, charts, counters, and small boards. Traditional maps are not used. Thematically, this game covers tactical tank combat in Europe during World War II. Now let's see how you win the game. A full game consists of completing numerous missions from June 1944 through April 1945, which you will track on the mission log sheets. The game ends upon completion of the final mission in April 1945, or the game ends immediately if you are killed in action. Victory is determined after the game has ended. During each mission, you will be commanding your tank on the battle board. You will engage in rounds of combat with German forces on the battle board until all of the Germans have been removed from the board or your tank has been knocked out. The side holding the field at the end is the victor and will result in your mission success or failure. At the end of the game, you will total your mission successes, which you can compare to the results in subsequent games while attempting to continually improve your score. The rulebook also provides the following historical yardstick to see how well you did based on the number of missions successfully completed. Now let's review the components. This game includes a full-color 28-page rulebook. There is a link in the description for the most current rules updates on the publisher's website. There are 5 double-sided tank display mats which provide 10 different tanks. There is 1 battle board used to resolve combat against enemy forces. There is 1 operational display used to track major events. This board also provides a sequence of play. There is 1 double-sided crew status chart to track the commander's various categories as either an NCO or officer. There are 2 sheets of counters to help administer the gameplay and represent both friendly and hostile combat units. There are 5 double-sided player aid cards for the charts and tables used to resolve game functions. There is 1 pad of double-sided mission log sheets where you will track your mission results. And finally, there are 2 6-sided dice and 1 10-sided die. Now let's set up the game for our playthrough. First, we'll select a tank type. We'll select the M4. This tank requires no prestige level. Additional tanks become available as the commander's prestige level increases throughout the game. We place the turret-facing marker on the center box so it is facing forward. We place buttoned up or open markers on the marker boxes for the commander, driver, and assistant driver. The loader and gunner are always considered buttoned up. We then place one of our M4 tank counters on the open country box. We will move it to the hold-down box if our mission is defensive. Next, we place ammunition markers in the armament sections. We will place armor-piercing counters and heavy explosive counters in the ready rack. We will then place our smoke and white phosphorus counters in stowage. We then place our machine gun counters for the 3 mounted guns. Finally, we load 1 white phosphorus round into the loaded round box. As stated under the stowage section, armor-piercing and high-explosive rounds are considered to be unlimited. Next, we will set up chart A2 on the NCO side. First, we select the unit we'll be fighting in. We can either select one or roll a 10-sided die to determine the unit. We place the selected unit on the unit box. The choice of unit does not affect gameplay, but adds to the historical context and role-playing aspect of the game. We then set up the mission log. We'll be starting in June 1944. All months have 8 mission lines except for June 1944, which has 6. We assign a tank name, list the tank type, and create the nickname for the commander. We will enter our first mission on the top line. Next, we place the battle board in the play area. This is where combat will be resolved. We then place the operations map in the play area. This board has the sequence of play. This board also has the major events that occur throughout the game. A major event marker is placed on the operations map when the event is activated. Event markers are placed before the first mission of the listed month for the event. For example, St. Lo and Operation Cobra become active at the beginning of July 1944. Consult the rulebook for a complete list of operations and when they become available. At the beginning of each game, the commander and crew attend Fort Knox Training Center per chart F1. The F1 chart instructs us to conduct all training for gunnery, driver, and weapons. For gunnery training, we consult chart B1 and roll 2 6-sided dice and consult the long-range column. If there are 2 hits, we can place a gunnery -1 marker on the tank display mat. For driver training, we roll twice on chart B5 with a -1 trainee modifier. If successful, the driver receives the I for terrain -1 marker to be placed on the tank display mat. We then roll for weapons training for the gunner, loader, and assistant driver. No chart is used for this step. For this game example, we failed the gunnery and driving training, but we were successful for the weapons maintenance for the gunner. The commander then gets to select one of the spare time activities. We will select extra study time, which earns the commander the expert -1 marker, which will allow us to later purchase the expert skill with 1 fewer experience point. We also receive 1 experience point for graduating from Fort Knox. Attending training gives us 1 experience point, which we place on the A2 crew status chart. We then place our staff sergeant rank on each uniform sleeve. Finally, we place the expert -1 and weapons maintenance -1 markers on the tank display mat. Again, these markers do not provide the skill, but rather act as a discount when we are ready to purchase the skills using experience points. We are now ready to begin our first mission. Now let's see how the game is played. We will play through the first mission in June 1944. First, we'll determine our mission type by rolling on mission chart A1. We roll 2 6-sided dice and check the column for June 1944. This will be an attack mission. In attack missions, enemy infantry are dug in, the enemy fires first during the first combat round, and there may be an enemy counterattack. There are a total of 5 mission types. Refit is not a mission per se and does not have a counter, but it's recorded in the mission log and is considered a success for scoring purposes. The rulebook explains each mission type and its parameters. We then roll 2 6-sided dice on the A3 weather chart under the June 1944 column. In this case, we roll a 5 and get rain for this mission. We then roll 1 6-sided die for terrain per chart A5. In this example, we roll a 6 and will be operating in open terrain. We then place any major event markers on the operations map and remove any expired major events. The first events for St. Lo and Operation Cobra are not placed until the end of June 1944, so we will not place any for the first mission. On the battle board, we then place markers for the current mission type, the weather, our M4 tank facing forward, and the terrain. In open terrain, our tank starts at long range. We then roll per chart A4 to see which enemy forces are present. We roll 2 6-sided dice and reference the June 1944 column. We roll an 8, which generates 1 anti-tank and 1 infantry unit. We then roll 1 10-sided die to determine which AT gun has been generated. In this case, it's the PAC-40. To determine which infantry unit is generated, we roll 1 6-sided die and consult chart A6. We roll a 5, indicating a Wehrmacht unit with a morale level of 4 has been generated. In order to determine the setup space for each unit, we roll 1 6-sided die for each enemy unit and place that unit in space A, B, or C. Each space will indicate the die roll needed for it to be placed in that space. For the AT gun, we roll a 1 and place the unit in space A. For the infantry, we roll a 4 and place the unit in space B. Since this is an attack mission, the infantry starts dug in, so we place the dug in marker next to the infantry unit. We then list our mission type on this mission log and list the enemy targets for this mission. We will circle each enemy unit we destroy during battle. Since this is an attack mission, the enemy units will go first during the first combat round only. Subsequent combat rounds in the same mission will proceed as outlined on the back cover of the rulebook. Please note that according to errata that you can download from the publisher's website, there are several mistakes regarding the sequence of steps and referral to charts. Be sure to consult the errata before playing your first mission. Now that the enemy units have been generated and placed on the battle board, we determine enemy targeting by rolling one 6-sided die for each enemy unit not already engaged with us. On a roll of 1, the enemy decides to target us. Our tank is automatically targeted if we have already fired on an enemy unit. We roll a die for each enemy unit, resulting in a 1 for the anti-tank gun and a 4 for the infantry. A roll of 1 means the AT gun will attack us, but the infantry unit is otherwise engaged this round. Since the Germans were historically adept at hiding their AT guns, in any mission we are not allowed to target an AT gun in the first combat round unless it is fired on us first. The AT gun will roll 2 6-sided dice per chart B1 at long range with a +1 modifier for rain. They roll 4 + 1 for the rain, resulting in 5, which is a hit on the long-range table. We then refer to chart B3 and roll 1 6-sided die to determine where the hit occurred. We roll a 4, which indicates a hit to the hull. Next, we have to determine if the round penetrated, so we consult the B3 penetration chart. The penetration number of the AT gun is 7 with a -1 modifier for long range, leaving a total of 6. This is greater than our tank's hull armor value of 5 indicated on the tank mat. We roll 2 6-sided dice resulting in 3, which according to the chart immobilizes our tank. We then place an immobilization counter next to our tank. This also means our crew is subject to shock, which causes the commander to lose an action this combat round. If there are no commander actions remaining this round, we place a shock counter on the commander and he loses 1 command during the next round. Our tank is also susceptible to interior fragmentation, so we roll 1 6-sided die to determine if any crewman is injured. If the penetration value is greater than our armor, a crewman is injured if we roll a 1 or 2. We roll a 4, so no one is injured. Our tank commander then gets to issue 2 commands per the command summary chart. If the commander has the synergy skill, he can issue 3 commands 1 combat round per mission. During this turn, however, our tank commander does not have the synergy skill, and we only get 1 command after suffering shock from the AT gun round just fired. We give the command to fire at a target. We will fire back at the anti-tank gun with our main gun with a white phosphorus round already loaded. We must change the turret direction so we can fire at locations A or D. If the turret facing has to change, only 1 round can be fired at a target this combat round. The turret can move all the way with 1 command to fire. We then roll against chart B1 at long range with a +1 modifier for rain. We roll 9 + 1, totaling 10, which is a miss. A WP round always results in a smoke 2 marker placed in the target location. Since the infantry is not engaged, we then complete an event check per chart B9. We roll resulting in 5, which indicates we can destroy 1 random German anti-tank gun. We can then remove the AT gun from the battle board. However, since we did not destroy the enemy unit, we do not get credit for its destruction. This is the end of the first combat round. Any enemy trucks are removed after the first combat round, and the range is decreased by 1 if this is a defense mission. Per Rule 7.2.6, if the enemy has been reduced to a single infantry unit, they are considered to withdraw or surrender. Since all of the German units have been removed from the battlefield, this is the end of combat. However, since this is an attack mission, we must roll 1 6-sided die to determine if there is a German counterattack. There is a counterattack on a roll of 6, and the battle board must be set up for a defense mission with the weather and terrain remaining the same, and there is no resupply. We roll a 4, so there is no counterattack this mission. Since we held the field at the end, we have completed the mission successfully. Since our tank was immobilized, we must roll 1 6-sided die to determine if we will miss the next mission for repairs and must be assigned a refit mission. We miss the next mission if we roll a 1 or 2. We roll a 5, so the repairs are minor enough that we do not need to miss the next mission. Since we remain on the battlefield, we get to roll 2 6-sided dice per chart W1 to check for war trophies. We roll a total of 3, so we found a Hitler Youth knife which has a trade value of 3. We place the trophy counter on the crew status sheet. We then address awards and experience. The only award given at this time is the campaign medal to the commander after the first mission. Most awards raise the prestige level, but this one does not. We gain 1 experience point after every 3 missions, regardless of success or failure, and these points can be used to buy skills. We can upgrade to another tank if we have the sufficient prestige level to command it. We also take this time to restock ammunition and replace seriously wounded or KIA crew members. We can also trade war trophies for items on chart W2. We then update the mission log by circling any enemies we destroyed and marking the mission a success or failure. Since the infantry withdrew and the AT gun was not destroyed by us but by a nearby unit, we do not circle any units for this mission. The notes section will show you when certain tanks become available and when you can attempt promotion. Remember to consult the rulebook for when to place major event markers on the operational display. Also keep in mind that the Army Commendation Medal is awarded to the tank commander after the 5th mission and confers 1 prestige point. The counter is placed on the crew status chart in addition with a prestige counter. We are then ready to start the next mission by rolling on mission chart A1 to determine the mission type. Here are some additional rules to keep in mind when playing American Tank Ace. Armor-piercing rounds have no effect whatsoever against infantry and anti-tank targets. White phosphorus rounds always cause a Smoke 2 marker to be placed in the target smoke area. A hit against a tank or SPG destroys it with an additional roll of 1 on a 6-sided die. It also causes it to button up like a regular heavy explosion round. Heavy explosion rounds do not affect enemy tanks or SPGs, but cause the enemy to button up. The HE marker is placed next to an enemy unit to show that it is buttoned up. Against AT and infantry targets, only HE and WP rounds have an effect. AP rounds have no casualty effects against infantry and AT targets. Indirect fire support comes from a call for fire given by a tank commander which requires one of his commands. This can be in the form of field artillery or mortars. Call for fire requires the SCR 506 radio, which is only available to tank commanders who are first lieutenants or captains. Let's review the winning and losing conditions of the game. At the end of the game in April 1945, you will add up your mission successes. You can try to surpass this number as you play additional games, or you can check the rulebook to see how you did historically. The game ends immediately if your commander is killed in action before you complete your last mission in April 1945. This concludes this review of American Tank Ace. Visit us at these sites and don't forget to leave a comment to share your experience with the game, or to let us know what games you'd like to see reviewed. And if you'd like to experience something more exciting than sightseeing in Europe from a rolling tin can of death, stick around for our disclaimer. Coming up next.